Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm going to be putting the first ride on my wife's colt here, Lambeau. So we're going to see if he's ready. I'm going to talk you through the prep steps that I like to do to make sure they're hopefully not too bronky, and let's get into it. So normally I would be in a round pen for starting a colt, but he's kind of ready to be started. We just finished our symposium event. If you didn't come out there, you missed it. It was a fantastic event. We got a highlight reel floating around that you guys should check out. Super fun horsemanship event. But anyways, he was in it. He got saddled there. He got worked on the ground, but he did not get ridden. And so he's ready for his first ride. He's had a saddle on 3 times. I think today will be his 4th time being saddled. And my round pen is too muddy, so we're stuck in the little indoor here. But we're going to make do with what we got. So a couple things that I'm going to look at here is he's got to understand steady pressure, rhythmic pressure, and rhythmic motion. Now, because we put about 10 hours of training on them as a yearling, so that if we had to, have the farrier out and do their feet, that their feet are trimmable, make sure that we could trail load them, that sort of thing. So he's had some handling there from us, so he's been through my program. He's a pretty gentle-natured colt. When Kara saddled him at the symposium, he did get a little tight and had a little bit of a hard time accepting the saddle, so I want to make sure that I prep that area. And we're going to make sure that he's good to go. So what I'm doing now is I'm just testing. If I was sitting on him, I would be asking him to kind of bend his ribs and get soft through there. So just trying to achieve this little bit of bend. So it's kind of important to see on the ground is, can they just take this like C shape towards me? And it's just kind of a softening position. Horses come out of the box with a counter bend with their ribs stuck out. So I just want to make sure that he can get to those positions. So he's yielding his hindquarters there. He's soft to the halter. So that all passes the tests. Very good. So checking out, like I said, rhythmic pressure, rhythmic motion, and steady pressure. Let's go ahead and check out a couple of steady pressure yields. This is going to be my steering when I'm sitting on him, is can I flex his head laterally to the side? Very good. So I just want to make sure that that's in place. Come around here. Whatever you do on one side, you always got to make sure you check out on the other side. So you can see I felt contact right there, so I'm just going to hold right there. I'm trying to keep my hand by his body so that if he gives, I don't continue to pull. Go for the SpongeBob clip of 3 moments later. There. Good boy. Let's go ahead and do that one again. Oh, there we go. Good. Another one that's kind of fun to do, and you're not going to be riding their head, so when you're working with a colt, thinking about riding them, you want to spend as much time kind of back here behind their shoulder and around behind their hindquarters to get them kind of comfortable with that. So I like to do this little turn, face, and follow. See if they can kind of unwind themselves. Very good. Super. So what you'll see me do here is I'm going to alternate between rhythmic pressure, like that's what I was using to drive him on the circle, steady pressure, what I just used there, and now we got rhythmic motion, which can be kind of a form of pressure to horses if they're not used to it. So I just want to make sure that he's reading my intention. So my intention is quiet right now, even though the stick has some energy to it. And horses can learn to get in tune with that. And that's how he kind of knows if he should or shouldn't be afraid of something. So that's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get this ball on his back. So one of the things we try to create when we're starting a colt is to release them to being saddled and release them to the rider, to accepting the human on their back. And so this ball can be pretty intimidating to a horse if they've never seen one. And so this is a tool that I like to use. And it's kind of fun, but it's really big, it's noisy. Awkward, and it's kind of a good tool. He's had this done probably as a yearling. We probably played with this a little bit in that prep. This is only the 2nd time I've ever played with this horse. I had my team working with him as a yearling, and then Kara did the first kind of some of the steps of colt starting. So this would be about his like 4th day of going through colt starting prep. 2 days with Kara, 1 day with me, and then now here we are today, where I'm kind of thinking, yesterday I got him accepting the saddle better, and today I think he's probably ready for a ride. So we'll get that ball out of the way. So if I'm seeing green lights, if he's accepting things, it's move on. You don't need to camp out on one thing with a colt. You want to be fluid and kind of move with a purpose and be progressive with things. It's kind of like if everything's new, then nothing's new. So I'm using this rope and practicing just kind of simulating if I was tightening a cinch up and just seeing if he can accept that. You can see he's got his head on the ground. He's not bothered at all. So that's really good. And he's pretty quiet standing still. So if he's quiet standing still, I don't need to move his feet around a bunch. If he was having a hard time finding a standstill, I would try to release him to a standstill and move his feet more ahead of time. But if he's being good, I don't need to do all that. So now I'm going to check out a little bit of accepting the human with some bareback mounting. He's a little unsure of that. What I'm doing is putting weight over his withers with my forearm. Horsemanship is more of a journey than a destination. And if you would like help and have a coach and a mentor on that journey so that you're not getting stuck and plateaued in one spot and you can keep moving forward and following a sequence, I can help you do that on my Patreon page. We post a new video there every week. I'll answer your questions. I'll even do video coaching. So if you guys want to check it out, I'll leave a link in the description. Let's get back to the video. Now, while I'm doing this, quick question for you guys. I got a phone call from Road to the Horse, about a month ago or so, and they're thinking about having me in there in 2025. So not this next one coming up, but 2025. So I'm going to leave a link to their Facebook and Instagram page. And if you guys want to see me in Road to the Horse, leave a comment below on this video and send them a message saying, we want to see Ryan Rose in 2025. And let's see if we can get that to happen. And I would love to be able to use that platform to showcase how to build a connection with a horse, how to offer a horse a good deal, and hopefully make colt starting look like watching paint dry. He's like, what are you doing up there? So that's just part of what we call accepting the human. Just having that horse get comfortable with a human on their back. Feeling the weight. You know, if you just mount up from a saddle, it can be a pretty smooth and borderline sneaky way of getting on them. But if you crawl around up there bareback, it's pretty obvious what your intentions are for them. All right. Now when I do it bareback, I usually lay on them like that, but I don't usually put my legs all the way over. You're a little more committed when you do that. It's like if you have bacon and eggs for breakfast. The chicken's involved, the pig's committed. So those of you that have been following my channel for a while, you know that I'm really big on rope therapy, getting a horse to accept a layered rope. One of my mentors, Tom Dorrance, who I've just read books and watched videos on, never got to actually meet him in person, but he's pretty legendary in the horse industry. He used to say there's not a bad place on a horse to hang a rope. And so just getting a horse gentle from things all over their body. And so using this rope here, I can kind of prep him for that saddle. And I just want him to wear it. I don't want him to yield to it. I'm just putting a feel on it, asking him to be okay. And probably someday maybe we'll rope off him. And you can see this colt's staying pretty left-brained. He's not getting too bothered about anything. So I'm just checking a few of these steps out, also kind of to show you guys some of the prep work that we do. So this is kind of a taming test. So if I put a feel on this, can he yield and give to it? Or does he go into reaction mode? So he's wanted to chew on everything. And someday I'm going to be picky about that and not really want him to do that. But today I'm trying to make friends with him. I'm trying to be the sweet spot. I don't want to be the bad guy here. And so I'm not going to be super picky about that kind of stuff. And I think we might be ready for a saddle. So let's go ahead and we'll check him out with a saddle, and that's where we got to help him find forward is going to be the big key. Now, saddling is one of the more delicate spots of the colt starting process because there's a point where the cinch is not all the way on, where if they go to Bronc and around, the saddle could roll underneath them. And so we want to be really mindful of that. You want to make sure they have a good standstill. And because the saddle's heavy, I like to prep them really well with the pad here and make sure that they're accepting the saddle pad pretty good. You can see he's not troubled at all by that. Present this saddle to him. We'll let him have a chance to smell it if he wants to. He seems pretty good, so I'm going to try to land it up there nice and smooth. Okay, now this is the part here where you don't want to dilly-dally. So once you take a wrap here, right now, if he went to Bronc, it would just fall off and it would be bad, but not dangerous. Once I take some wraps here, now it becomes a dangerous spot. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this up just enough that if he went to Bronc, I think it would stay with him, but not enough that he should be too troubled by it. So I'm still gonna cinch him up a couple times. So I got my saddle secure where if he went to bucking, it'd be okay. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten it up a little bit more. All right, now, once you're here, take a deep breath, relax. Don't get in a big old hurry to do anything. And I just want him to wear it a little bit. Now, I'm gonna leave him hooked on here. If he was, you know, a little more of a Bronc, I probably would turn him loose and let him work it out at liberty a little bit. But he has been saddled a few times. And so you just kind of want to ease them around. You don't want to push them right into a canter. Just let them kind of have a chance to be comfortable with it. And they still might buck when you canter them with it, but I just like to give them a chance here. The other thing is I want forward movement. When you're starting colts, their tendency when they get troubled can be to sull up or go up. And so when he finds forward, I don't want to shut that down. And you know, a lot of people, especially if they're a bit of an unconfident rider, they're just thinking shut down forward movement all the time. And you really want to be thinking, find relief moving forward. You know, I don't have anything in my hands with a stick or anything because I want to be able to get a hold of the rope if I have to, if he does. Get Bronc a little bit. Good, I'm liking this. This is better than it was the other day. It's got good forward, I like it. Because that's kind of what he didn't have, and probably why Kara didn't end up putting a ride on him at the symposium, is he hadn't fully accepted the saddle yet. He was still kind of hunched up, and he'd kind of more rear up more than he would kick out. But he just hadn't really found forward. Let's see if we can tip those hindquarters away. Yeah, I like that. He's moving out at the lope. So much better. To me, getting bucked off a horse because they haven't accepted the saddle yet is a really bad reason to get bucked off. And so the other day when I saddled him and when Kara did it, he hadn't fully accepted the saddle yet. Today's the first day that I'm going, yeah, he looks like he's accepting the saddle. There you hear him blowing out, decompressing. The saddles want to crawl forward on him a little bit, so I'm going to have to be mindful of that. Good. All right. Tighten up my cinches a little bit more. And now I'm at the phase where I'm going to go through what I would call my pre-ride checks. So there's a few things that I like to do once I have them accepting the saddle to make sure they're kind of okay with the stirrups flapping and understanding pressure pretty well. So what I do is I got a second rope here, and I'm just going to put it around the stirrup. You know, a lot of times if a horse goes to bucking, they feel pressure on their sides, and that's kind of what bothers them. And so I like to just expose them a little bit to that stirrup flapping. And I'm very okay with that stirrup flapping, meaning go forward. That would kind of simulate a leg cue when I'm on there. So if their response is to go forward, that's cool. What I'm looking for, though, is that it's not a reaction. Just wanting it to be a response. Super. And we're going to go ahead and do that same thing, only on the off side. So this just can be a little bit more scary to them. Good. He's accepting that really well. Yeah, he looks totally fine with that. So we're gonna go ahead and move on. Now, there's just 2 more things I like to do. So one thing I like to check out, make sure they're okay with this rope flapping above his head. That's really good. And again, I did this stuff with him yesterday, so this is not his first time doing it. This is just hopefully going to be the first ride. So now I'm just putting a feel here, and I'm changing the angle, and they can feel like they're in a bind right there when you have the angle of it versus going around their hindquarters with that rope right there. So this kind of simulates an indirect rein if I was sitting on him. Very good. Good boy. All right, he's looking pretty good, so I'm going to swap out my lead rope for some reins. So now we got our reins attached here. Now we're just going to do a couple of step up and downs. Now he's standing a little bit funny there, so I'm just going to try to push him off balance. And you want to do this because sometimes if they have to regain their balance when you're stepping up and down in the stirrup, that can startle them. So you kind of want to make sure that they have their balance. You can see he's just finding his balance there with me up here. Very good. Now, when we first started bareback mounting him, what you didn't see is we would do a lot of this, of just kind of, after stepping up and down, you just kind of move their hindquarters and just let them move their feet a little bit so that they can kind of not get too stuck. A lot of times horses will get a bit stuck when you're doing these sort of things if they stand still too long. You know, if you had a horse with a different personality that couldn't stand still, and they finally do, you may just want to go with that. Very good. Once you're up here, just a lot of petting. I'm going to ask him for a little bit of lateral flexion. I'm sure he's okay with that. One of the things I like about these ring halters that I'm using is they slide around. I've had other colts that I was starting with a regular halter that just had the knot on the bottom, and if they went to buck and you go to bend them, instead of bending them, they would just kind of bow up, and I kind of got myself in a wreck one time doing that. So since then, I've moved on to these ring halters here. And his lips are a little bit pursed, so he looks pretty quiet, but there's just a little bit of tension there. I'll just keep an eye on that. Let's go ahead and ask him for a step. Good boy. Again, you don't want to just be too still and stationary up here. You know, he's kind of figuring out what I'm doing up here. But they can kind of, not like forget about you up there, but they get surprised if you let them stand still too long. And he's pretty comfortable to move around with me sitting on him, and I like that. A lot of horses are more stuck than he is right there. So this is a good deal. Now, you'll notice I didn't move his feet a whole lot on the ground warming him up because he is a pretty quiet colt. And so if I worked him too much on the ground, he could end up being kind of tired, and then he'd have more reason to not want to move once I'm up here. So you don't want to get him too, you know, I'm not trying to tire him out on the ground, at least not this one, if I was being honest. So a couple things that I'm looking for. Number one is overall, I want him to have a good experience with me up here. So I'm not wanting to get in a situation where I'm putting a lot of pressure on him to get him to move. He needs to understand that if I ask him to move here, so it's this leading rein start here, then a little bit of leg. So he needs to understand that. But I'm not wanting to get to spanking him too much or anything like that. So overall, make sure he has a good experience. If he ends up learning to do a hindquarter yield like this, a little bend there, a little forequarter yield, stepping his front end around, that'd be pretty cool. But just kind of trying to start the journey of being ridden off with a smooth start. And you see there, he's kind of wiggling around, so I'm not going to release that pressure until he gets at least walking forward. And for me, a lot of times the first ride, I'm just going to do walk trot. You know, the old adage is you didn't really ride him if you didn't walk trot canter, but what I found is that you don't really have any steering or a lot of confidence initially, and so you know, I don't know what the big hurry is to get them to do all that, because you're really running a risk of teaching them some bad habits. So he's a little unsure there. Good, found forward. So that's what I'm looking for, just building that conversation. He got a little stuck, and then he sort of found forward. And ideally, I'd probably have somebody to flag me in a perfect scenario, but my cameraman's busy running the camera. He's wanting to wiggle back and forth a lot. This would be a little bit easier if I was in a round pen, to not quite have to worry about my... There we go. On a little bit of forward there. There's a lick and chew. So I just had that little tight spot, but you don't want to quit there. And yes, you saw me grab the back of the saddle. Not ashamed to do that if you need to. I'd rather be prepared than lucky. So he's just kind of figuring out this little conversation I'm having is there's no relief standing still. That's where the spanking comes on. And when he went forward there and trotted a little bit for me, that's where he found relief. There, he found forward again. And a horse can find forward at a walk. He doesn't have to be cantering or trotting to find forward. You can kind of see the difference here with him. Boy, and this horse has a super smooth trot. That's really nice. And the other thing that he feels is he feels me bring my life up, he feels me cluck, or hears me cluck, and then he feels me bring my legs on, and then finally I touch him with the saddle strings. And that's the sequence. Good boy. And so hopefully this starts to build a conversation with him where he understands that when I bring my life up, when I cluck, that means forward. And if he doesn't go find forward, then we'll just add in a little spanker. And again, you can use somebody to flag you, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do that all the time. But at some point, the rider has to be able to take over and ask that horse to move out. Now, I could quit there. I'm going to see if I can get a little bit more forward movement. Very nice. Go ahead and do a turn. There we go. He thought about stopping, and I was able to cluck and talk him out of it. That's what I was looking for. Sit, quit riding, ask him to turn. Good boy. So there he's thinking forward. So that'd probably be a real good place to release him on. So we'll get a little softness here in his hindquarters. See if we can get a little bit of a step backward. Sometimes this can be a tough one for them at first. See if he can follow a feel. Good boy. Super. Let's take a little bit of time to rub on him, and that would be his first ride. So, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you got some tips for how to do a trouble-free colt starting, and hopefully this was fairly boring. In my opinion, that's how colt starting can go if they're prepared and set up right for success. You know, and again, he's pretty tame and gentle, but it's because we got him tame and gentle first, and therefore he was really ready for a first ride and a start. So, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.